All right, everybody. Hello, everybody. This is the Minority Programmers Association, and today we're having two startups from JMU. We got Hafiz Bhuyan from Drivense, and we got Trey Rustand from Hich, and they're going to share their experience not only starting a tech company while they're in college, but how they balance that life at James Madison University and running the company. So just as a warm-up, and this is information about our guest, and both of them are actually classmates of mine. I had telecommunications with Trey, and I had advanced programming with Hafiz. So it's absolutely amazing seeing like people from your class motivating you to actually become entrepreneurs. And actually, Trey actually helped a lot into mentoring, starting MPA. So I really look at them like allies, and I really look at them as potential mentors at JMU. So if Trey, you could give a background on what Hich is first and foremost, and then if Hafiz, you can go after him and explain what Drivense is in like a quick stump speech.
Absolutely. So Hich is a social ride-sharing platform created for the collegiate community. We're connecting students going in the same direction, and you must have a .edu verified email address. It has a few twists. It has lower prices for riders, but higher margins for drivers, and some social features such as allowing females to select the gender of their driver. We really wanted to place a community feel into ride sharing to make students feel safer with more affordable rates.
All right, that's excellent. Yeah, I look at it as like the college Uber, or like the Safe Rides extended, and so I feel like a certain level of trust with the Hich app, and I'm very excited to see where it's going to go and how it can change the college community. So Hafiz, if you could talk about Drivense.
Yeah, so so Drivense is basically a online textbook platform that we created for college students because we realized that the current textbook situation is just getting way out of hand. It's too expensive. And so what we do is we partner with publishers and authors and basically anyone that's part of the basic textbook making process. And we bring everything under one platform, under one roof, and offer that all for one low price. And we basically want to pretty much bridge the gap between, getting your education, because we know that textbooks are an important part of how you learn. It's a really good way to understand the concepts, and we just want to make it easier, more affordable for students to get that. And we want to make sure that this is a good deal for everyone involved, for the people making it and for the people accessing it.
All right, well, that's a great summary. So now that you guys kind of got how their business started and how the background behind their company, I kind of wanted to have a little warm up on what startups are and what you think of startups, just to keep in the mind, back of your head. And so what do you think of when you think of startups? Is it like Facebook? Is it new companies? Is it smaller companies? What are examples of successful startups? What are ways you think startups can fail? And do you see yourself working for a startup, or even see yourself making a startup as an entrepreneur? So just keep this in the back of your mind. And here are some quick facts about startups, actually. So there are 3 new startups launched globally every second. And the Harvard Business Review showed that 70% of investors started out by coming up with their ideas while they're actually at another job. And so there you can see a lot of times people are kind of not satisfied with what they're doing, and then they pursue or their startup starts out as a supplemental side job, and then they slowly transition to that. An interesting fact was that single founders take 3.6 times longer to reach scale than a team of 2. So it shows the importance of having a strong team. And it also shows that balanced teams raise more money. And then this is a very daunting number, which is why I kind of wanted to bring in startups and entrepreneurs here, because half of the startup businesses fail within 5 first years. So you have to be very determined, and you have to be very adaptable. And I kind of wanted to understand the process that Trey and Hafiz went through. So like starting from the initial conception, so how did you guys find people to work with you, and how did you properly compensate, and then how do you guys manage the people around you in your company?
Absolutely. I know we're on a time crunch, so I'll keep my stuff all very synopsized right now. And there's some stuff I want to say that you have lined in the slides later, so I'll save that as well. But what we'll talk right now on how to properly manage people. We use a lot of the basic fundamental platforms and softwares that you guys probably also use in class. We use Trello on a daily basis. We use Slack on a daily basis. So Trello for project management, Slack for communication amongst our team. When we're on the go, we used Voxer. It's like a walkie-talkie, so we're able to shoot ideas back and forth on the fly. And then another big one for the project management side to keep non-technical tasks at hand was Monday. Very similar to Trello, but it just allows you to organize what you're working on at that point in time. When dealing with people, it's really important to stay motivated and be a leader if you're one of the founding members of an organization. It's really easy to get off task or lose sight of the end goal when things are tough, especially when you're not making all the money you want to make. It's really important to lead by example and always stay driven and focused on your end vision when it's something you're obsessed with.
Yeah, yeah. Just going off of that, basically, the people you want to find to work with you are people that complement your skills, right? So if you're a tech person, you want to try to find someone that's good on like the business side. And I always find that college is the perfect place to have that, because you literally have thousands of students who want to get some experience. And you have people that you can find at the college business school. You can hire people from the art school to make a logo or to create social media posts. And so, it's a great place to find people who would eventually become, co-founders or maybe just early team members. And then compensating, you can give them, stake in your company, which is always going to be valuable at the end road. If everyone works hard, it becomes valuable later. And other ways, everyone gets experience doing something that they're learning in college and taking that, to a hands-on experience. And so for us, we use AWS for like the techie side to like manage that stuff. And then we used GitHub for a little bit, but then we realized it's not private. It wasn't until now, so we use AWS Code Commit for that. And then for communication, we just use G Suite and GroupMe to talk in between the team and outside of it.
All right, so kind of going to where the idea came from and how exactly you guys, once you had this idea and you came from the drawing board, how you actually manifested the idea. So I see a lot of your ideas are very college-based. So can you guys kind of go on how you guys came up with the idea at college?
Absolutely. So originally, when I was solo, I was the only person involved way back in 2017 fall. The idea was strictly just to connect students going to class, have them input their information into a database based off their neighborhood, and plug and chug in the schedule and connect at the bus stop or wherever it may be on demand and head to class for $1 or $2 bidding system. But as Hafiz just mentioned, finding people that complement your skills, my co-founder, Zach Casey, came on board and he started to enlighten some new ideas, and we totally just started running with it more based off the Facebook pages that we'll get into later in this conversation. We realized that we could totally transform transportation on college campuses as a whole, simply like Uber, like Lyft, but just making it strictly college. So entire transportation, no matter where you're going, whether it's a social event, to class, to another university on the weekend, whatever it may be, we wanted to connect the students. So the idea originally was called Campus Caddy, but we realized we wanted to have a more marketable name as we move forward, which we then transitioned into Hich. And we knew that this was going to become something when we started to actually build it and had our first MVP come out, getting some users, and the ball really started rolling. And that's when we had to really hit the ground running with a better development team, increasing the numbers on our team, and started to gain interest from mentors that we weren't even reaching out to because they liked the idea so much. So it really started to become something powerful and even lit a fire brighter inside of us as a team when more people took interest into what we're doing. And it was no longer just us seeing that vision. It started to blossom and blossom and blossom, and it became addicting. And we knew we were obsessed on day one, but when we were on year two, it was something we were like, wow, like this is happening. And it just kept manifesting because we just kept putting our left foot in front of our right and right in front of our left and didn't stop moving. So it kind of just evolved over time more and more as we progressed and began to get more serious as the days went on. So that's kind of how the idea started. The very fundamental story of how it started was there was alcohol involved and students had not a lot of money to get around the Uber account. They didn't have any cash on it. And we knew the Facebook pages existed, but we were like, this took too long to do. What if we could have just whipped out an app for another student? And that's really how it began. And then the .edu portion came into play when For the exact, it was a social network actually. We're sitting there watching it, and when he goes harvard.edu, it like just hit our head. We're like, holy smokes, like that's exactly the barrier we need to connect the students. So it's definitely an interesting story, and kind of all started running from there.
Yeah, I love that idea. It really does take way too long to get a safe ride around here, where it's like, I'm not about to go to Facebook to do that.
Yeah,
Just
no.
have an app. Well, what about you, Hafiz? Coming from the textbook perspective, also a very college idea.
Yeah, so for me, my idea actually started 2018. Back then, I was a solo founder as well, just like Trey was. So basically, before I came up with the idea, I was in an organization called Society of Entrepreneurs, and basically it was a group of like-minded individuals. We were all together. At that time, I didn't have anything, and so over the summer, I basically gave myself a goal to come up with a startup idea, figure out a legitimate problem, try to solve that. And come August, I was, I had all classes ready. I was looking at textbooks, and one of my math textbooks was like, almost $200. So at the same time, I was listening to Spotify, and I was like, okay, my gears were starting to turn, and I thought, okay, maybe if we combine these two things, what would happen? And so, little by little, I started researching everything over the whole year. And then a year after that, I brought in two other co-founders, and then over the time, we got a lot of JMU alumni all over the place started reaching out to us, telling us it was a cool idea. We started meeting with a lot of people through JMU, which was awesome. Which is the best part about the college thing, is you have all these alumni who are more than willing to help you out. We got to meet everyone over the summer. So yeah, it was a really short, kind of popped in my head, and I thought, we go with it. It's a real problem, something I experienced, so it has like that firsthand experience. And I just wanted to, it's been almost 2 years now. It's just pretty crazy, but yeah.
All right, so you guys kind of mentioned your process from the original drawing board and then your research after. So how did you guys end up becoming like experts in your own little niche field, with Trey with like ride sharing, and then Hafiz with textbook services and subscription services? Like, what have you learned, and what were kind of the biggest research hurdles in developing that knowledge base?
Oh, so honestly, the amount you learn and become aware of is astronomical. There's things that you would never in a million years have imagined the path you're going to be on late at night, studying things, researching things, diving into the global economy of ride shares that exist in India, China, Australia, Africa, Europe, everywhere. Because you need to be aware of everything that exists, especially when it comes to raising money for your organization. You're going to be put on the hot seat time and time and time again about your company, because you're the one that is leading it, and you need to be the most knowledgeable about certain niche ideas, certain details when you're asked questions, because you need to know. And the more and more you research, it's really just benefiting your company. It's benefiting your team. It's benefiting everyone. It gets to the point where there's things that you just can't control in terms of obsession. You're just going to research nonstop, but you want to be aware of information overload as well and keep focused on what you're doing. It's really important to stay on the straight and narrow, stay on your vision, because people always say after Uber, what could there have been? Another Uber? Well, look at Lyft. They're literally the same exact things. And then they go into further ride shares. A lot of people don't know about organizations like Hop, Skip, and Drive, which is a ride share for people between the ages of 7 to 17, or Juno, which was just a luxurious ride share, which ended up selling to Get for like 250 million. These organizations were told that some of these ideas were preposterous or stupid, and these companies then go and raise millions of dollars and scale across the nation. So you're going to get a lot of feedback when starting an organization about, oh, you're too young, or you're in college, or your idea is stupid. But at the end of the day, if you're bought into what you're doing and you're becoming an expert in the field, you know that there's a place in the market for what you're doing. It just comes down to execution and actually providing yourself the ability to do it, which means doing it. You can only talk about it for so long and provide that you know so much about something, but becoming an expert truly manifests across your entire organization and allows you to propel yourself forward as a team, really.
Wow, that's a textbook answer. And so speaking of textbooks, Hafiz, how did you end up getting knowledge on your field?
Yeah, so for us, we wanted to tackle this from two perspectives. We wanted to get this from both the maker side, the producers who are making it, and the people who are using it. And so for us, the user side, we just talked to our friends, our classmates, and even our professors on kind of their views on textbooks and what they think, like what they wish would be different, and then from the other side, we just kind of reached out to textbook companies, publishers, and just kind of look online, just see kind of what information was out there. And it's surprising how much you can learn just doing like simple Google searches and just reaching out to people who would probably know more. And so for the subscription end, what we did was all the different types of information we had to learn was like, how does Netflix kind of do their whole royalty deals? How does a $10 subscription every month, how does that fund like millions of movies that you see every single day? Like the numbers, like all the research just boggles your mind when you're doing it. It's crazy, but I want to say I'm an expert in the field. I mean, you never are, because you're always constantly learning. And like these fields are always constantly changing, so you always got to make sure you're ahead of the game, or else your competition is going to come up from right under you. And so I want to say I'm an expert in the field, but we're always constantly learning, making sure that we're up to date on both textbooks and subscription stuff. Yeah, and that's whenever you're running a startup, especially, you gotta, even the big companies, you always gotta make sure you're staying ahead of the game, because any day you could disappear.
Yeah, so I really appreciate that when you first were like doing this R&D, you were really focused on what the user wanted, and so I think like that type of a user oriented type of focus really helps your product and your overall mission drive way more clear. So going to the next topic, now that you have this idea, you've developed the expertise, you've done your research, you've gathered your team. How do you secure funding, and how do you, are you applying for grants? Are you going to venture capitalists? Are you doing it from your own money? Are you selling equity? What were the avenues you saw for building wealth in your organization?
Hafiz, you want to start this one off?
Well, just something to go off of. I know both of you are part of the Summer Venture Accelerator program and whatnot, and that again was a resource in itself. So can you guys talk about that? And I know Trey plays a mentorship role in that as well. So can you guys briefly go on about that program? And
Yeah, absolutely. Hafiz, you want to go first? Can you guys hear him? Hafiz, I can't hear you. Can you guys hear me?
How about now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right. Okay, yeah. So I guess so basically trying to find funding. So early on, chances are you're probably gonna not need the money, depending on what industry you're in. Like for both of us, we're in software, so we can kind of bootstrap for as long as we can. Now the Summer Accelerator was really helpful because they gave us grants for like $4,000 to basically have us stay in Harrisonburg, be with other entrepreneurs, and to build our companies, get mentored, and to meet other JMU alumni who are also entrepreneurs, which was amazing. But stuff like that is kind of stuff you have to figure out depending on what your company is, what you need. Yeah, and for us personally, we haven't really gone into that point yet.
Awesome. Yeah, we kind of went through it all. We did grants, we did the accelerator, we did convertible note and competition. So I'll touch base on each and every one of those. As Hafiz mentioned, you want to bootstrap for absolutely as long as possible without giving up any equity to start, because the first amount of money you're going to take that's giving up equity is the most expensive money you're going to take. So my co-founder and I actually sought after multiple competitions we thought we could go and win that were meant strictly for student entrepreneurs like ourselves. This was the first summer after our first entry through the Summer Venture Accelerator, and this was my first time as a fellow. So we received that first stipend from JMU, and then the next year we started looking in the fall for competitions in the winter and spring, which is the best time to do it for any of you watching here. We applied to Tom Tom Festival, which happens in Charlottesville. We applied to eFest, which is put on by the founder of Best Buy in Minnesota. We applied to the Gallant Challenge at UVA and we also applied to Lighthouse Labs Summer Accelerator Program, and we were fortunate to get accepted to each and every single one. We were able to raise no equity financing through those, and it ultimately helped us reach a much further point than we ever could have gotten without giving up money. Things got to the point, though, where we had guys on and we began paying them. This is what I wanted to touch on later in the conversation. And when you bring guys on, you are putting yourself on the timeline. They have to get paid. Work needs to be handled. And you're looking at the end of the road because now you're on runway. What's your burn rate per month? How much money's going out? How much money's coming in? And that number is incredibly important, especially to investors. You need to be that positive cash flow because you need money to pay your guys, but you also need money to get put back in the pocket. So we got to the point where we actually did receive an undisclosed amount for a convertible note, and it put us in a very difficult position. We were sitting in college. Hey, do we want to take on this money and possibly leave school for this semester and see what we can make of this? Or do we want to keep bootstrapping this and see what we can do with our own money, our own terms, and see how far we can take this? Ultimately, we ended up not accepting the convertible note, which was a very difficult decision, but we felt like it was the right decision at the given time, and timing just wasn't right. And it's really important to understand, hey, do we need this money? Is it the best idea to take this, or can we still make this happen? And it kind of put us in a position where, looking back, hindsight's 2020, it was a very valuable learning point for us because I do believe we made the right decision, but at the same time, it could have prolonged our lifespan much longer. But the biggest thing that I want everyone on this call to know that is a JMU student is the Summer Venture Accelerator is one of the best things that I've ever gone through in terms of not only money, but from mentorship. It's really helped increase my business acumen, how to raise money, how to go about it different ways without giving up equity, how to really network, how to build, and how to sell, and how to really find that passion within myself to be a part of a team, lead a team, and see a startup go from nothing to, the end result of where we landed.
In that program, I just actually emailed them because I'm interested in getting that mentorship. And I think they're postponing it till maybe, August. And I don't know if it's going to be at Harrisonburg or if it's going to be like a remote session. But that is a valuable resource, and a lot of the JMU startups come directly from there. Can you go over what a convertible note is for those who don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of different. This is a whole conversation, and in terms of itself, in terms of raising money from venture capital to angel investment to price rounds, non-price rounds, and convertible notes. It's a debt for equity. So instead of paying it back right away, the debt just turns into equity over time. And this is something we did a lot of research. I wish I had my co-founder, Zach, on. He was very, very knowledgeable about all the different terms of raising. And for us, it was best to raise through a convertible note. You'll see a lot of startups who are doing that now just because it's very founder friendly as opposed to raising through a strict venture capital where you're not raising through a convertible note.
Okay. Wait, so does someone like pay you like they take out so who's like, can you explain like the payment system for a convertible note? Like,
yeah. So you're still getting money to use, but it's for a certain percentage of your organization, and the money will convert to equity. I mean, you're still gonna have to pay your investor back. Make no mistake, that's not what I'm saying. But you're basically gonna convert the debt into equity as time moves on. So when you cancel it off, then you'll be paid back, and then once they're paid back, they wean off. So the percentage.
Oh, okay. So it's a loan, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So. Going off of that, you kind of mentioned it earlier in terms of how, when you're hiring people, what were your biggest fears about your company, and then how do you motivate people? And at the same time, what are your major milestones of success for your company in your early days? So how did you know that, like, what was a big celebratory period for Hich when you got to this certain point, or same thing for Drivense? Like, what were the major milestones that you're like, if I do this, I have improved? And what are your big milestones in the future as well?
Sure, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Absolutely. So in terms of biggest fears, when Hich started, I had nowhere near the knowledge base I have now. I'm actually probably a totally, completely different mindset and technical individual than I was when this all began. This actually was something that lit a fire in me in terms of programming and coding. Overall, I think the biggest fear was, honestly, there was a lot that was scary. It's a huge endeavor you're embarking on. I didn't take on internships. I stayed in Harrisonburg. I slacked off on some classes because it's all I could think about. So I think personally, the biggest fear about my company, especially as a college student, was making certain sacrifices that I wasn't aware of the outcome. I was just blinders on, let's make this happen with the team. Let's do what we have to do. And I was fortunate to be surrounded by a team that wanted to do the same thing. So it made it a lot easier. Being surrounded by like-minded individuals was huge for me. They really helped carry me as well in terms of a mental health perspective. But something we did to motivate one another was always remind one another that, hey, we're building our resume while we're doing this. We're proving to ourselves we can execute on an idea from inception to the end result, as we previously mentioned. And we're constantly getting better each and every day that we work on this common goal together. As we began working, a major milestone for us that we knew from day one was to receive a ride from a random person. And there was a time in September, this was right after we launched. I was sitting there on my couch. It was probably 10:30 on a Friday night. And I got 5 ride requests and made money off the app that we created. And it was the coolest feeling that I've ever had in my life. I was like, we're post-revenue. This is sick. Even if it was only like a total of $12 or something, it was awesome. We're sitting there getting pings for Hich. And I was like, man, this is amazing. And we're getting in the car driving kids. And they're like, man, this app's sick. And we're like, yeah, we know. And we're like, we made it. And they're like, what? So it's definitely one of the coolest feelings I think I've ever had in my life, actually building something that ended up making money and like coming together. And it was a huge celebratory moment for our team. We immediately contacted dev guys, our whole team, like we got a random ride, celebrated the next day on a Google Hangout call. So it was one of the coolest feelings we've had, and still kind of just the beginning of that, though, I believe.
So what about you, Hafiz? Is there a certain milestone or somewhere you'd like to get to, or just any fears that you have starting the company? I just wanted to know like how much of your own finances did you guys invest? Because like that's kind of associated with the biggest fear. Like you're really putting your own money where your mouth is, and that's a huge fear on my part as well.
Yeah, so a lot of my biggest fears are coupled with Trey's, being a student and, all those sacrifices you have to make in order to, take your company to the next level, to go step by step. And like for us, it's basically like choosing the right path, like not taking internships or not going to certain events because you're at home, or you're, building your company, building a site, you're talking to clients, whatever that may be. And, being part of the team for us is, not letting the other team members down. Is like making sure you're doing your part, because, as a startup, everyone's task is basically like exponentially multiplied, because everyone plays a much bigger role when you're in a much smaller company. And so basically like just making sure that everyone's doing their job, including me, to make sure that, everyone that joined is at some point going to get something out of it. That's one of our biggest things. And to motivate us, like one of the things I love to do is real simple things, just going on YouTube and just looking at interviews, or like just small talks from like other successful entrepreneurs like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and just hearing how these guys started and 20, 30 years ago, before, most things we know, and then how they got to where they were. It's kind of a really cool thing to kind of see how, they went through all their challenges. If they could do it, they're humans too. We can too. And for us, so a couple measures. So one of the successful measures we had was getting the accelerator, the summer accelerator last summer. That was our very first one. And back then I was just a solo entrepreneur. But then after I started bringing in my other team members, our next goal is basically getting, an author. Our next big goal is basically either getting an author on board or a publisher. And then after that would be getting our first batch of users. So just one user logging in and saying, this is a cool app. That's more than enough for me.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's you guys already mentioned this, the big balance in your student life. Like, how has this improved or hindered your company? Do you guys use your class to reinforce what you're doing with your company? I know, I believe Hafiz is an ISAT major, and then I think Trey is College of Business Computer Information Systems, or is that correct? Or
Yes.
yeah. So a lot of that stuff, the programming principles and the business aspect is like very in your curriculum. So how did you? And you already kind of talked about your college experience influence on your startup, but like, how did you reinforce what you're doing with your company? Because I know when me and Trey were in class, we had a project on data security, and one of the things that piqued his interest is actually holding his users' data within his app, and then from then on, we did a whole project on data security. So, kind of how does it coincide? How do you struggle with it? And you guys can give the details on that.
So we had this thing in the College of Business when you're sophomore or junior fall, so sophomore spring or junior fall, where you actually build a business plan and you do the whole thing. And I was doing that while actually doing a business. So it was really interesting to see the parallels between what I've been doing and how it's taught in an academic environment. That was something that I think actually made me a weaker student, but also a more valuable person in the actual business field, because there's a big difference between taking that exam to get an A on how to build a business and then receiving funding for $20K through a accelerator program. Because you're proving to yourself in the real life environment, it's not a simulation, hey, we're moving forward. But then if you go and get a C or a D on an exam, you're starting to wonder, am I good at this? So that's why I always love to touch on the difference between someone who's successful and not is just doing it. You have to be willing to put yourself out there and get over those fears that we previously mentioned in order to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. But other than certain classes, there are certain classes that have really helped me tremendously, because there's a lot that I didn't know, and I would see errors that we would make, and I would go right back to my professors. And it's funny, the next day in class, I'm like, wow, okay, this is something we can do to increase security, or this is something that we can do to increase optimization, or from a business perspective, I can raise money better this way. So it almost was like butting heads a little bit at certain times, but then there was other times where it was give or take, helping me here, hurting me. It's hard to explain unless you're actually there, but it's not black or white for sure. There's wins, there's losses, there's parallelism. There's so many different aspects to school and running an organization at one time that can make you kind of go crazy, because your plate's going to be full from 6 a.m. to 12 at night, 5, 6 to 7 days a week sometimes, because you're having a lot of people to report to, whether it's a professor, whether it's a mentor, your team. And as Hafiz mentioned, you feel a really tight-knit bond to your team and you cannot let them down. And that's a huge priority, is always raise that lowest common denominator. Don't be it.
All right. So, what about you, Hafiz? How kind of did like the ISAT background, or you just doing both, improve or hinder your company?
Yeah, so for ISAT, what's great is that their majors kind of pretty well balanced. That's a double-edged sword. So good part was that I have taken a couple programming, and like I took the TNS course, the Telecom Network Security course. Awesome place. I love learning about that stuff. And so those didn't really improve, because those weren't really in the direction of what my company was. But those being tech and stuff, like I knew at some point I was probably gonna have to learn that anyway. So just getting my feet wet, learning the basics was a great way. And for like hindering our company, I mean, I know that for the first year that I was running it, there were a couple weeks at a time where I couldn't even touch my company because I had to put my school first. And so that would usually pull you back, in terms of like timeline wise. But all in all, like it didn't really in the long run, it hasn't really hindered me, because over time you kind of learn how to schedule your day to day to make sure you put both your school and your company, because your company is going to be, they're both going to be something that's going to help you out in the long run. So you got to make sure you take care of both of them. And you just kind of learn that as you go. So it's not, being in classes and running a company, it's a challenge, but it's one of those things that, you're going to learn something that can help you out much later in life.
Yeah. in terms of my own personal perspective, also like, you know, helping run Minority Programmers, I think if you have any opportunity to ingratiate your schoolwork into what you're doing, like what you said with the business proposal, we had a technical communication class, and I was starting the organization then. Every single time that we had a topic on a proposal or a way to write it, I would write it in the context of my company, and I would use it in real life. So I would hit like two birds with one stone, and every single opportunity, whether it's a research project or a paper I'm writing, I wanted to be able to use for supporting evidence for my company, the organization I'm doing. Because at the end of the day, like, and I really believe like if you make your classes to what you're passionate about, you become a better lifelong learner, and I think that's the best way to do school in my opinion. So I'm glad that you guys touched on that. So I mean, what's on everyone's mind right now is the COVID-19 pandemic, and there's a lot of interesting like problems that like arise from this. Whether, especially for a ride sharing app, you know, people can't really, they're social distancing right now. They might not be comfortable with doing ride sharing. With textbooks, people are already online. Maybe textbook subscription services are already providing their materials for free, so that might take away from the competition of Drivense or whatnot. And then at the same time, like, we're all working remotely, and we're not with our teams that drive us up and keep our mental health up every day. So it's like, how is this pandemic in particular affecting your companies?
Yeah, so for us, the first thing that happened was that we were planning to go to London for like a big convention called the London Book Fair. It fell perfectly, like a timeline. It fell right in the middle of spring break. So me and one of my co-founders were ready set to go there. And then, you know, a few days before, it canceled because of COVID-19. And so we knew that for us, we were planning on that being like a big milestone for us of getting in contact with publishers, and hopefully, you know, at least if not getting like licensing agreements, maybe just getting a meeting sometime in the future. But we knew that that was going to be a pretty big goal for us, and it didn't happen. So kind of just had to work around it. And for us, even though, like you said, like right now, many companies are giving away stuff for free, like free subscriptions, whatever. That's just for the time being. And once that goes away, they're going to go back to charging whatever it was before. It's like a temporary like solution. And so for us, that's not really something that we're worried about. Other than that, if we can show that people, you know, like the digital solutions work much better than the physical ones, this is the perfect time to kind of prove that point.
Yeah, no, I really like that that tidbit on like changing the negative into a positive, and now kind of proving ourselves during COVID is going to be like, it's going to hold true after. So what about you, Trey?
Yeah, absolutely. So COVID didn't really impact us because we've ran into other issues before COVID-19, about a month before. Not completely shutting it down, but shutting it down for time being. Like I mentioned about bootstrapping, it became very difficult for us to the point where we needed to regroup and almost go back to the drawing board a little bit as a team, and not so much even as a product. It became to the point where, as a team, some of us, we needed to make some more money. We needed to be able to live, and kind of as founders, it's an issue that you really resonate with when you're in that position. So I've accepted a position, and I'll be moving on from Hich for now. And Zach is working on the same, and the 3 or 4 other members of our team are as well. We still keep in touch, and right now, just with a whole lot of other issues in terms of taking on a contract from another company, we all know and are familiar with how that works. We have to be kind of careful. We can't really work on another product with IP while we're working with our organization. So the future, we see that there's other implications for this, and I think you want to talk about this after. So we're kind of holding off right now and just kind of pausing Hich. But for the future, I think you have some other slides, if I'm not mistaken, about other implications we can utilize Hich for, which we're kind of interested about.
Yeah. So before that, I was kind of, or how about, yeah, no, I think.
No worries. I can touch on it if you'd like me to.
Yeah, if you could touch on the different applications, because I'm all about like kind of seeing, you have the idea for your technology, but all these apps from the back end can be reutilized and repurposed to do other things. And so I think Hitch is an example of that. Like you guys using Google API and this whole ride sharing service can be used for way more broader implications. So kind of wanted to touch on ideas that you had.
Yeah, so we have a third-party payment system, Stripe, built in. We have a forum. We have the ability to communicate, maps, geolocation, all sorts of different things. And there was a lot of talk when building the application, actually, and how we wanted it to be presented and how much we wanted in it. And one of the main things we've really learned is be careful of the way you go about it. And as we know, in an agile environment, it's very difficult sometimes to keep things on the straight and narrow when you need to be fixing one issue, you got another one popping up, etc. So other implications we have are anything sort of like a favors app within a college or a town, or just getting in touch for any sort of payment that you may need. We have the ability to post a favor, follow up with the favor, negotiate the price, and then consolidate and make it happen. So it's really interesting to be able to see how many other areas we could pivot, because we have a long list bulleted for them. Even in COVID-19 era, if you wanted to post on there, say, hey, I need this done, you'd have the ability to do that. Somebody could pick it up within your private network based off your email and go run that errand for you. There's definitely an almost infinite list of what we could do with what we've built. It just comes down to pivoting on that exact
that last idea that you said, that's an idea we actually had at MPA when it first broke out. We wanted to make like a hazmat runner suit, basically, where people are like, it's like Hitch, but like people are doing favors and running out to the store for elderly populations and communities that need. And we were kind of thinking like the technology for that exists with Hitch right now. Like you guys can easily like reformat that, and that's kind of what we were thinking, in terms of that line. So it's like I love that you guys built this technology, and that like the UX is absolutely beautiful for what you guys did. So I really want to see that like repurposed or continued, or like,
that's a big shout out to Zach and our boy Coy. They're nice with it.
Word. Nice with it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's like kind of you just kind of shouted out your boys. So it's going on to the last kind of note of building a professional network. And you guys mentioned these programs that you applied to and whatnot in the summer venture. again, starting this organization, like I'll use a lot of the advice and practice that in everyday life. And I'll make sure to reach out to you guys as support because I want to continue this connection and also like help other tech startups amongst my peers get off the ground. Especially now, you see a lot of times people don't necessarily have job opportunities, so now they're coming up with ideas and really going and getting it. So I think this may serve as a catalyst for a lot of people to like, that idea I have, let's start that business. And how do I do that? Well, you have these resources here. So I hope we were able to foster that and facilitate that. So again, thank you so much, Hafiz and Trey, for coming out and giving your insights.
Thanks for having us, guys. This was awesome. Seriously.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.